5, and it is 2 o'clock, and we're here to meet with Parks on an update and funding request, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Dose.
Okay, well, this is kind of the same thinking the commission's been having on roads and things lately, that we have been so guarded with what little funds we have that sometimes we don't get a lot accomplished out there, especially maintenance. So I went on a tour with these lovely ladies a couple of months or so, a month and a half ago, and saw that our parks, the result of being, we budget enough to mow the grass and open the gate, and very little beyond that. There hasn't been money for replacement or major repair or anything in multiple generations. Our park equipment is non-ADA compliant, and it's from the 70s or 80s. Our mowers look like they're from the 70s. Things are just kind of coming apart. What I propose today, and I'm open for suggestions, but what I'd like to propose is the same thing we kind of did with the discussion on Calder Roads the other day, kind of a radical approach to let's catch up on maintenance. For funds, I've talked with Colleen. The board before us had set aside about $1 million for broadband. Talked with Colleen. We feel that we could move a chunk of that money and feel free in a minute here to explain. We could move a chunk of that money that we're not going to be using it all there as originally thought or planned, that we could take a chunk of that money and reallocate it for parks. And what I'd like to propose to the board is you've got a list before you that I asked Val, and this was my doing. I asked Public Works to actually put a price tag on all the things that we're never going to get done with our $18,000 a year budget, and see what we could do if we took some LATCF money and plowed it into redoing the parks. This list is not completely prioritized, although I put the playgrounds at the top for a reason. My proposal is also that I would be willing to take this on as an extra project working with Public Works, and I would go out if we had a substantial amount of LATCF funding, I would go to the mines and some of the larger companies in the valley and say that the county is really putting some skin in the game. And I think seeing playgrounds pop up would prove that. But would you contribute and see if we set forward a chunk of this, and then I went after fundraising with the rest, which is something I'm willing to try. I think that's why I put the playgrounds first, because I'd like something that could get done so that they actually see since 1980, nothing has changed, that they would see a major change happening. Along with all these other maintenance. I mean, we don't have power in one of the kitchens. The posts that hold the roofs up are coming down. There are some other serious needs in here too, as well as just some, our lawnmowers are kind of cobbled together from various parts. I asked why we had so many weed eaters. It's because half of them don't run. They just use them for parts on the other half. So there's a lot of things here that I think this would catch us back up to where, without affecting without having to redo anything in our yearly budget, we could get caught up on a whole lot of the things and then go for several more years. Plus, I think this would make us ADA compliant, which we have not on the last park inspection. And I think Val sent you that park inspection stuff.
Yes.
That would make us compliant, eliminate some liability. But the bigger point is, we all want our kids to grow up here, to stay in the area, but we invest very little in things for our youth and families in that way. As a county, we don't have a lot of opportunities. All of our money is going to all these legal demands. I think this would be a great way to show some investment in the families and the kids. So I'd like to propose that we take $300,000 of LATCF, which doesn't go very far when you look at playgrounds, but it would take a lot of this, and then I would go out and try to raise 70 more. But if you guys say no, that's too much, then we'll see what we get. But my goal is that I could go to the mines and these other companies and say, the county's put in this amount, it's earmarked, this is work to be done in the next year, 2 years. It's happening now. even getting started maybe on the playgrounds this year if time allows, if we can get the bid process. That's why I've invited Colleen to be a part of the process, because all of this would have to go through bid process for all of these items.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that. And would just like to form another small committee for her with Public Works and her to make sure that each part of this is being done correctly.
So the million that we allocated for the broadband would come back into the county.
Not all of it. This would be just pulling this 370. There is still some broadband projects that are happening, but the original intent was that to use that for match for BEAD. The way BEAD was set up originally was that the county would be able to apply and bring in some of that funding.
But where are we on that? Because that's been, that's been a, because it is a sizable amount of funds,
Mm-hmm.
and really we have a lot of things in the county that what we're lacking as well. So I would like to look more into that to see where we're at, and maybe have you explain it so that we, we're not just leaving funds on the table.
Right, and definitely not. And that's where, Dave and I talked, and I knew $1 million wasn't going to be necessary anymore. What we're doing right now through that BTA grant, we're doing the consultant. Right now we've got some surveys out. We're doing actual infrastructure mapping. And so that we also have some private investment partners and a bunch of people at the table to talk about what it is to bring broadband, specifically fiber, into the community and more into the off the I-90 corridors. And so that'll help us understand through the engineering and survey process what we have, what we need.
No, we're not paying for that, right?
No, that's BTA funds. That's a grant through USDA.
Okay.
And so that'll tell us at the end of that what that would look like. Now, again, county is not going to, but there might be some additional funding that we can go after that might be a little bit of a match. But we'll know at the end of this BTA what that looks like, because we'll have engineering plans and we'll be going out to the ISPs to say this is what we're looking for.
And how much longer do you think that's going to be before we get that back?
It has another year on it.
Okay.
I'm hoping to complete it sooner, but that grant runs out in 26, and we'll have that figured out by then. We're like I said, just collecting the data right now to go out to the engineers next. Once the engineers are at the table, and then I've got ISPs and private investors coming in to talk about what does this look like. So as soon as we have those engineering scopes and know what that would potentially cost, then we'll go back out to those. I don't foresee anything, but if there is a potential to maybe match some additional grants to do engineering, that just is, it takes cost off of the ISPs, and right now they don't want to invest because the return on investment to put that in doesn't pencil out with our population, but we're finding some unique ways around that.
Okay.
Pulling this out is not going to affect any of the work that we're working on for broadband.
Okay.
And with that being allocated already, it's not going to be an issue to reallocate some of those funds?
Nope. You guys will be able to say that's where we want to go, and that'll go in the minutes here. You'll justify where that's going to be. Just go.
That was my thought, was it would just be nice to see something concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, we still have to add some concrete into this bid, but that's what the Val's here. She's got pictures of damage. She's got details.
This is West Shoshone Park. I only made one copy of each part. Some are color and some are black and white.
The tennis courts are unusable. This would get them back, which we do have pickleball people using. The basketball pole, I wonder if all of our Osborne basketball players that grow up there learn to lean when they shoot, because all the poles are at 20-degree angles. Part of this was straightening the poles out. Some of this pricing is based on using Public Works this fall or in the spring or when available to do some of the work, because they wanted astronomical amounts to install the playground.
Okay.
So some of this, in addition to money, we're also using some of our in-house labor. But some
And
of
we
this-
could also utilize volunteer labor. I
And
know some of the
volunteer.
other park installations within the Silver Valley, the Lions Park in Osborne, for example, the install heavily relied on volunteers. And so I think we could do a mix of employees and volunteers and get things taken care of.
This is Jean Day.
Okay.
In fact, yeah, our church is helping the Smelterville Park
Mhm.
work on their playground, so.
Okay.
You can see on some of the swing sets that the legs are rusty.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the playground equipment itself is kind of hodgepodge together. Like at some point someone had built a playground which is not compliant. As far as electrical goes at Jean Day Park, the panel is in really bad shape and could be upgraded to code. And then new wire ran to the East Kitchen, which has been out of power for 2+ years now.
So the pricing that you've got here for some of these things, like the electrical, that's hiring an electrician to do it.
Mhm.
The playground, that's counting on volunteers and park and public works personnel, etc. But some of this, we're actually proposing that we'd hire somebody, because we're skeleton crews, the parks and public works, so we don't have enough manpower to do everything. But what I asked the ladies to do was kind of come up with a ballpark, and that's why I'm saying we would then prioritize the list and start at the top and see how far we could go depending on donations.
Okay.
And if we can get lucky, we could get the whole list done.
And these numbers here on the sheet that Val compiled,
Mhm.
she's spent just an unreal amount of hours for the past month and a half soliciting quotes, knowing that these were quotes so we could put something together so we could get to a number that you guys could look at. So these
Okay.
are based on real quotes. Obviously, you know, like Commissioner Dose had said, if some or all of this money is funded, we know that we would need to then go out and requote all of this. We
So-
would need to actually receive bids on that.
So this could be a multi-year.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Now, one of the other things is too is we have RAC grants, and nobody's applying for the RAC grant. The RAC grant that we sent out this year went for the Shoshone Park. We put about $40,000 more in the Shoshone Park. So that would be something that needs to be applied for next year. if we
And
do
so with the racks, I think a lot of reason that was approved through RAC, and I could be completely wrong, is that it was tied with the Forest Service. So there are certain areas, so
Okay.
you don't usually see a lot of awards for racks. You'll see a lot of them for like the vault
roads and
toilets.
things like that.
Yeah, and the vault toilets, that's kind of in the wheelhouse because there are certain like infrastructure things. So with parks, there are certain Parks and Recs grants, and we have gone out. We went out for one last year that was, you know, there were a lot of applications and we didn't quite make the mark on that. But yeah, RAC, if there's anything that we could squeak into RAC, we absolutely would look for funding from another source. If there's another source available,
Okay.
particularly with little or no match, we absolutely would exhaust those resources.
And if you move to approve some of this, then I'd also ask that you're moving to approve, giving me permission to move forward with some of the companies in the valley and see if we could get some participation through donations from private companies, you know, to match.
Okay.
So we go after grants, we go after donations.
So this approval, just, you know, we can approve it, we can approve, and then it may come out lower as if you get, you know, if you do.
Once
find
we
more
get
funds.
competitive bids and if we can find more funds, but I'd like to set enough aside that I could go to a major donor and say, we have enough to get the playgrounds and start down this list. We need to go further. What could you contribute? Could you help with the tennis courts? Could you help with the basketball? You know, that kind of a thing.
Okay.
I just would like to see something concrete improved, and maintenance just seems to be the first thing that got cut around here years ago because of the lack of funds.
Yeah, and now that's why we're really looking at the roads too, because we really,
Yes.
that's
Absolutely.
something.
Lack of maintenance.
Lack of
Lack of
funds.
funds.
Yeah, lack of funds, so, okay. Anything further? Anybody? Do you have any comments, Commissioner
So
Cowell?
Commissioner Dose, you're looking at 300,000.
I would
That's what
propose
you were-
setting aside 3 and then trying to raise the rest. And I'll do a motion, or if you want to do a motion, but I think that's a fair shot at it, but it's not enough. So then it'll motivate us to go after the rest. And if we don't get it, we may not be able to do everything on the list, but we'll sure be a long ways down the road from where we are today.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have taken grandkids or kids to these parks and
Mm-hmm.
played on the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing on the equipment at Gene Day. It's been there a long time.
When you drive through the park, you know, from a distance, the park looks amazing. The parks are beautiful. We do get comments on the parks. But I've actually brought my grandson down to each of the parks. I like to take my family down and enjoy the parks. If we have a free time, we reserve the kitchens for birthday parties or baby showers or things like that. And, you know, when you get in and you start using the facilities, particularly the playground equipment, it's getting to the point where it is questionable if you want to allow your kids or grandkids, where it does become a liability for safety.
Okay. And then the report from the Idaho Parks kind of indicates so. Yep. Okay. All right, I'd entertain a motion.
You want to do it, or you want me to?
You can go ahead.
All right. Well, I would motion that we earmark, and help me with the language, Colleen, $300,000 out of the LETCF funds that was previously allocated to broadband. We earmark that 300 for the next couple of years of projects at the park.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Any,
Thank you.
Any comments? No? Okay.
Thanks for all the work, I will say,
Thank
because I
you
know
all.
you
This
guys
is going to be
I
huge
know
for
you've
the
done a
entire
lot of
community.
research.
This is exciting.
We're adjourned.
You're going to see something.